pre-flight inspection is the direct responsibility of the crew chief, who is aided by one or more assistants. In general, the inspection consists of looking over the entire airplane for damage, obvious defects, and signs of weakness. The inspection logically falls into three main divisions: exterior inspection, interior inspection, and engine check. The exterior inspection, in turn, may be divided into three parts: the tail and midsection, the underside of the wings, and the top of the wing. Here, two men will perform identical inspections on the two sides of the airplane. The vertical fin is examined for buckles, dents, loose rivets, chipped off paint, and any other type of defect. In like manner, examine the rudder for buckles, tears, and loose patches. The static ground must contact the ground for safety in landing. Continuing the inspection, make a visual check of the horizontal stabilizer and elevator for condition of skin and fabric. Along the leading edge of the horizontal stabilizer, inspect the de-icer boot for punctures and loose patches and for freedom from oil. See that no screws are loose or missing from the fairing. Overhead, observe the condition of the de-icer boot on the vertical fin. Inspect the tail wheel for distorted rim flanges or ribs. Visually check tire inflation and look for possible cuts and bruises. Also, visually check inflation of the strut and examine the entire gear for any sign of trouble. Up in the well, observe the condition of the tail wheel boot and continue to inspect the gear. Then examine the underside of the horizontal stabilizer and elevator for condition of skin and fabric. Moving forward, look over the midsection for wrinkles, dents, and other obvious defects. Make a general inspection of the lower turret. Check the oxygen equipment by making sure that sufficient pressure is registered as prescribed, and then by opening the valve to test for proper flow. This concludes the inspection of tail and midsection. The underwing inspection starts with a check of the CO2 fire extinguisher discs to see that they are not ruptured. The trailing edge of the wing and the aileron are inspected in the same manner as were the stabilizer and elevator. A glance down the line of wingtip bolts reveals that none is loose. Out in front of the wing, continue the visual inspection of the airplane, again examining the de-icer boot for oil or possible damage. Also, observe the condition of the landing light and air scoops. Under the wing, the general check of skin and rivets is continued. Inspection doors are given special attention to see that all are securely fastened. Continue with the supercharger on the outboard nacelle. Here, see that the waste gate control is properly safety and that the gate is free to operate. Spin the turbine wheel to see that it's free and running true. The expansion joint is another part which is carefully checked. Make sure that all cowling is securely fastened and look over the entire nacelle and fairing. Make a visual inspection of the leading edge of the wing between nacelles. Vents and drains are examined for excess drainage and freedom from restriction. It is important that none of these vents and drains be overlooked. Men familiar with the B.17E will know where to locate all of them on the underside of the wing. Others will do well to study the diagrams in the technical orders. It is also important to know the location of the fuel strainers, which are reached through access doors. All fuel strainers are drained during the pre-flight inspection. After completing the operation, be sure to re-safety the drain cocks and plugs. Likewise, the access doors must be securely replaced. At the inboard nacelle, test the other supercharger turbine wheel. Look over the tire to see that it's in good condition and properly inflated. Make sure the rim has not been damaged or dented, and see that the wheel chocks are in place. Continue the inspection of the inboard nacelle. See that the brake hose is free and is not rubbing or chafing from mud. Also check for leaks. Examine the strut and oleo mechanism for apparent defects. Inspect the wheel well to see that all tubing and wiring are intact and that control cables are not frayed and are free from excessive dirt and mud. Check the expansion bolt on the inboard supercharger. In order to reach the cannon plug, it is necessary to remove one piece of cowling from the nacelle. Since the cannon plugs serve to ground the ignition, they must be securely seated. Failure of the connection here would leave the ignition on, regardless of the switches in the cockpit. When the plugs have been checked, the cowling is replaced and securely fastened. The visual inspection continues around the inboard nacelle and back under the wing. Arriving at the third fuel strainer, again open the access door and drain the strainer. When the operation is complete, again re-safety the drain and securely fasten the access door. The oil tank for the inboard supercharger may be reached from below through an access door. So this is a good time to verify that the tank is full. This operation was not performed at the outboard engine because oil for the outboard supercharger is checked on top of the wing. When the level has been checked, the cap is firmly replaced and the access door securely closed. A glance into the remaining two scoops reveals that they are clear. Then continue to inspect the skin of the nose for wrinkles, dents, or other damage. Test the airspeed tube head for security of mounting and remove the sock. This completes the inspection of the tail, midsection, and underwing of the right side of the airplane. The left side has been checked in the same manner by the other mechanic, who will be followed now as he inspects the top of the wing. Usual precautions are exercised in walking on the wing. Here again, the entire surface is looked over for dents, buckles, loose rivets, and any apparent defects. Skin wrinkles especially should be noted, as they are signs of structural weakness. In the inboard nacelle on the left wing will be found the access door to the glycol, or heater fluid tank. The door is open. The safety wire removed from the cap. With the cap off, check the level of fluid in the tank. As always, be sure to replace and re-safety the cap and firmly secure the access door. Nearby, on the side of the inboard nacelle, is the oil tank for number 2 engine. Once more, the level of fluid in the tank is checked. And again, the access door is securely closed. At the outboard nacelle, engine oil supply is again checked, and access is made to the oil tank for the outboard supercharger. Oil for the inboard supercharger has already been checked beneath the wing. Again, the oil level is checked, the cap is replaced, and the access door closed. Finally, one of the most important operations is the visual check to see that all fuel tanks are full. As a safety measure, before opening a fuel tank, run your hand along the wing to discharge static electricity. This visual check of all fuel and oil tanks must be made on the day the airplane is to be flown, prior to the first flight of the day. Checks made on a previous day cannot be considered part of the pre-flight inspection, nor is a check of the instrument readings sufficient. When all tanks on both wings have thus been examined for a level of fluid, and all caps have been securely replaced, the inspection on top of the wings is complete. So far, the main items checked in the pre-flight inspection have been the skin and fabric of the entire airplane, de-icer boots, landing gear, cowling, inspection doors, CO2 fire extinguisher discs, vents and drains, superchargers, and levels in the heater fluid tank, engine oil tanks, supercharger oil tanks, and fuel tank. These operations comprise the first major portion of the job, the exterior inspection. The second part of the pre-flight inspection is the interior inspection, which in this instance is performed by the crew chief. This section covers the tail gunner's compartment, waist gunner's compartment, radio compartment, bomb bay, cockpit, and bombardier's compartment. Also included is the visual check of the propeller. In conducting this part of the pre-flight, the first move is to test the operation of the door as you enter. Also, check the emergency release. Near the door is the toilet. Lift up the seat to make sure the inside has been cleaned and serviced. And see that there is enough paper. Also, see that the fire extinguisher is in its rack and full. Check that the engine servicing platforms are properly stowed. Examine the tail wheel boot and bearing and the oleo mechanism. Then check the engine servicing racks for security of attachment. Moving back into the tail gunner's compartment, make sure the latch is in place on the escape hatch. See that the fire extinguisher is securely attached. Every extinguisher should be taken out frequently to make sure it isn't empty. Here, too, a check is made of the oxygen equipment, which must be tested at every station throughout the airplane. The windows must be clean and operate freely. Returning to the waist gunner's compartment, see that everything is in order, that all accessory equipment is properly stowed, and that no loose tools or other stray items have been left inside. Once again, check the oxygen pressure and operation of the valve. On the lower turret, see that no foreign matter has gotten into the gears. Continue the visual inspection. Just before going into the radio compartment, inspect the first aid kit at the side of the door. Inside the radio compartment, check the cranks and extensions and the life raft handle. Beneath the floor here is the camera pit. Test both camera door and viewfinder door for freedom of operation. Notice the condition of the glass and make sure it's clean. At the bottom of the right front wall is located the propeller anti-icer reservoir. Remove the cap and using the measuring rod, check for proper level of fluid. As always, the cap is securely replaced. Make sure the CO2 fire extinguisher is secure in its rack. Once again, as at every station, test the oxygen equipment. Checking only one or two outlets does not suffice. Thermos bottles must be full before takeoff. Likewise, the supply of paper cups must be adequate. Moving on into the bomb bay, continue the visual inspection of the airplane. Test the guardrails to see that they're properly secured. Before checking the hydraulic fluid reservoir, make sure the hydraulic pressure gauge reads 0. Then test by hand to see that the hydraulic fluid level is 1 inch below the inboard lip of the filler neck. The detailed procedures demonstrated here, plus the general survey of the airplane, complete the interior inspection up to the cockpit. Here will usually be found the flares and flare guns. Both are checked for security of attachment. The crew chief is now in position to verify that the ignition switch is off and signal to the men outside that it is safe to start pulling the propellers through. This operation serves to pump out accumulations of oil in bottom cylinders. Meanwhile, the mechanics inspect for oil leaks around the hubs and around the governor. Each blade is examined for nicks, scratches, cuts, or other damage, and is tested for looseness. This procedure is repeated until all engines have been pulled through at least 5 complete revolutions. The flight report is checked, and then the cockpit inspection continues. Windows on both sides are checked for ease of operation, and all plexiglass in the cockpit is inspected and cleaned inside and out. Oxygen equipment is tested as before for pressure and flow at both the pilot's and co-pilot's outlets. Compare the clock with your watch, which should check with operations time. Set the clock if necessary and wind it. Set the altimeter to the station altitude and vibrate the panel lightly. See that the rate of climb indicator reads 0. Likewise, the airspeed indicator if the sock is still on the airspeed tube. Uncage the gyro and turn it in both directions, checking for free operation. The gyro should come slowly and evenly to rest, showing that the mounting is free through the vertical axis. Uncage the flight indicator. The gyro erection will be observed after the engines have been started. Check the alignment of white marks to see that none of the cover glasses have slipped. Clean off the glasses and make sure that none are broken. In order to test the auto sign instrument, turn on the main line switches. Move the inverter switch to normal and turn on the emergency switch. Check the coincidence of all left and right pointers. The manifold pressure should equal the local barometric pressure. The tachometer should indicate the lowest reading. Fuel pressure, 0. Oil pressure, also 0. Oil temperature should equal atmospheric temperature. The fuel quantity gauge should register full. To test the flap indicator and the flaps, turn the switch to down and observe the position indicator, while an assistant outside checks the flaps themselves. When they are fully down, set the switch to up and continue to check the indicator and the flaps. When the check is complete, turn off the switch. The cylinder head temperature reading should be consistent with the free air temperature. Test the alarm bells. Turn on one booster switch and see that the fuel pressure gauge indicates sufficient pressure on that engine. In the same way, turn on the booster switches and check fuel pressure on the other 3 engines in turn. Make sure the automatic flight control equipment switch is off. To check the control surfaces, unlock the rudder and elevator, and pull the aileron pin. See that all trim tabs are in neutral position. Move the ailerons to both extremes, making an actual visual check for full range of operation. In like manner, visually check the full range operation of elevator and rudder. Moving into the co-pilot's seat, continue the cockpit check by opening the cowl flap selector valves. Set the parking brakes. Make a check to see that all intercooler controls operate freely. Place the hydraulic valve on pressure storage tank position, and with the hand pump, raise the hydraulic pressure to approximately 450 pounds per square inch. Return all cowl flap valves to the locked position. And the hydraulic valve to normal. Turn on the exterior lights and have an assistant make a visual check to see that all lights are functioning. Exterior lights on the B.17E consist of 2 landing lights, 1 passing light, position lights, 3 along the upper center line of the fuselage, and 2 on the upper surface of each horizontal stabilizer. Running lights, 2 on each wingtip, and 2 near the top of the vertical stabilizer. And 2 signal lights, 1 red and 1 white in the tail. Interior lights to be checked are the cockpit lights and the following dome lights. 1 for the tail gunner, 2 in the lower turret, 1 on each side of the bomb bay, 1 in the ceiling of the pilot's compartment, 1 in the rear bulkhead, 1 in the ceiling of the navigator's compartment, 1 in the step at the front end of the catwalk, and 1 on the rear side of the bulkhead.